What if I told you that Sleeping Beauty wasn't kissed, but raped? That the Little Mermaid turned into sea foam after being rejected, and that Cinderella didn't live happily ever after, but witnessed doves peck out her stepsister's eyes? The Disney princesses that made us dream of castles and happy endings were born from dark, cruel, and sometimes deeply disturbing tales. Today, you'll discover the real stories Disney never wanted you to know. This is Tales Untales. Disney has always been a symbol of magic, innocence, and happy endings. But what few people know is that many of its most beloved stories were altered beyond recognition. Tales full of blood, tragedy, and horrifying punishments were disguised to appear sweet and child-friendly. Today, we're going to peel away that shiny layer and reveal what really lies beneath. Disney turned the story of Cinderella into an unforgettable classic. A sweet girl mistreated by her stepmother and stepsisters, who finds happiness through magic and true love. But the version it was based on is far from charming. In the original Brothers Grimm tale, the story is much darker and twisted when the prince searches for the owner of the glass slipper. The stepmother, desperate for one of her daughters to marry him, forces one to cut off her toes so the shoe will fit. The trick nearly works until some doves alert the prince by pointing out the blood. She tries again with the other daughter, who this time cuts off her heel. Again, the doves expose the lie. Eventually, Cinderella marries the prince. Her stepsisters attend the wedding, pretending to be repentant. But the punishment comes. The same doves pick out their eyes, leaving them blind and doomed to beg for the rest of their lives. This is not just a story of magic, but of revenge, mutilation, and divine justice. Little Red Riding Hood is one of the few tales where Disney kept the core idea, but still left out the most disturbing parts. In the original version, there are no gentle morals or heroes with axes, only death, deception, and a child devoured. It all begins when Red Riding Hood goes to visit her sick grandmother. On the way, she meets a cunning wolf who tricks her, takes a shortcut, and reaches the house first. There, he eats the grandmother and dresses in her clothes, hiding under the sheets. When Red arrives, she suspects nothing until it's too late. The wolf eats her too. There's no rescue, no heroic woodsman, no happy ending. In some even darker versions, the wolf offers her meat and wine without telling her that she's eating her own grandmother's remains. It wasn't a bedtime story, it was a brutal warning about innocence, danger, and the darkness hiding in the woods, and in faces that seem kind. The Snow White story we know is almost identical to the original, but with a few horrifying twists that Disney never dared to show. In the classic tale, the Queen doesn't just order Snow White's death out of jealousy. Her obsession is so sick that she demands the huntsman bring back her lungs and liver so she can eat them for dinner. The huntsman, moved by pity, lets her go and brings back animal organs instead. But the ending is even more gruesome. When Snow White marries the prince, he decides to punish the queen with the nearly demonic cruelty. He has iron shoes heated until they're red hot, then forces the queen to wear them and dance in front of everyone until she dies. Disney left out the cannibalism, the torture, and the sadism. They gave us cute dwarfs, a poisoned apple, and a kiss of true love. But in the real story, the punishment wasn't symbolic. It was fiery, humiliating, and final. The story of the Little Mermaid is one of Disney's most beautiful. Love, bravery, and a magical transformation to find happiness. But the original tale is the complete opposite: gray, heartbreaking, and tragic. In Hans Christian Andersen's version, the young mermaid falls deeply in love with a human and gives up her voice in exchange for human legs. But the cost is brutal. Every step she takes feels like walking on sharp knives. Still, she endures the pain, hoping to win the prince's love, but he marries another woman, and her heart shatters. She has one final chance. If she kills the prince, she can return to the sea. But she refuses. Instead, she jumps into the ocean and dissolves into sea foam. No wedding, no happy ending, no redemption, just a pointless sacrifice and a love that was never returned. Disney gave us a fairy tale, but Andersen wrote a tragedy. A story where loving deeply doesn't save you. It destroys you. Disney's version of Sleeping Beauty is sweet and magical. A kiss breaks the curse, and everyone lives happily ever after. But the original story, written by Giambattista Basile in the 17th century, is a nightmare disguised as a fairy tale. In this version, the princess falls into a deep sleep after pricking her finger on a poisoned spindle. Years later, a king, not a prince, passes by the castle, climbs in through a window, and finds her unconscious. When she doesn't wake up, he rapes her. 9 months later, she wakes up giving birth to twins with no idea what happened. The king returns and confesses. Shockingly, she forgives him and falls in love. But there's more. The king is already married. His wife discovers the affair and tries to kill the children and cook their bodies to serve them to the king. She fails, is punished, and the princess marries her abuser. It's a tale so twisted, it's hard to believe it inspired one of the most beloved children's films. There's no true love here, only silence, horror, and resignation. In Disney's hands, Beauty and the Beast became a story of redemption and true love, a young woman learning to love beyond appearances. But in older versions, there are no enchanted castles or magic roses, only misery, abuse, and death. One of the darkest versions tells of 3 sisters, 2 wicked and greedy, the third humble and used as a servant. Secretly, she's forced into prostitution to support the household. One day, a deformed leprous man begins visiting her in secret. She feeds him, moved by compassion. But her sisters notice food is missing and, enraged, beat her nearly to death. What they didn't know is that the grotesque man was Death in human form, now returning to claim justice. Death reveals himself to the sisters, punishes them mercilessly, and then descends to the cellar where the dying girl lies. He lies down beside her and offers her eternal rest. It wasn't a story of love. It was a tale of suffering, redemption, and an ending in the arms of death. The real stories behind Disney princesses remind us that not everything that glitters is magical. Beneath their gowns and smiles lie tales of pain, blood, and unthinkable punishment. And remember, even fairy tales have a dark side. This was Tales Untold.